To answer your question about downturns, there is no precedent for this. We've been down for 5 years at this point. 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That's not a downturn. That's not a cycle. We're smacked. I mean, the cement is hardening around our ankles, Rob, and I don't mean it in a doom and gloom way. There's an opportunity. I'm an optimistic guy. I'm an entrepreneur, but we keep diddling around and we're going to find ourselves in deep trouble. We need to really put the proper investment in tourism and turn it around.
It's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast, the podcast where we look at all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. All right, our guest for today's podcast is founder, chairman, and CEO of the Baldyga Group International, or BGI, one of Guam's leading tourism and attraction groups. He is the operator of multiple Guam attractions and experiences. He is former chairman of the Guam Visitors Bureau Board of Directors. He is current chair of GVB's Recovery Committee, leading Guam's multi-year tourism recovery plan and product improvement priorities. He has been a passionate and strategic voice behind new destination activations like the Tumon Night Market, now a weekly GVB event in Pleasure Island, Tumon. He is an industry leader frequently tapped by media and all types of forums to discuss Guam's path back to sustainable tourism and airlift growth. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Mr. Mark Baldyga. Mark, how you doing? Welcome to the Innovate Guam podcast.
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Rob.
All right. Well, we're excited to have you here. We have a tradition here where we kind of start off with some icebreaker questions to get a sense of where your head is at in terms of innovation. So for you, what is your definition of innovation?
For me, innovation is trying new things with a fresh set of eyes. Here's the hook: that service the guest and the customer journey. So without that, to me, it's useless. It's sort of, Steve Jobs had that vision where it needs to start with the customer and work backwards to the product. And so we take that same approach. Innovation for the sake of innovation or technology, to me, is a little flat. So It's trying new things with a fresh set of eyes that service the guest, right? The guest experience. That to me is, that's innovation for us.
Okay. Can you tell me about one innovation or micro innovation you've implemented at one of your many venues that noticeably improved that guest experience that you're talking about?
Yeah. So one of the things we've done for a while at Tauto Tassi, but we just recently ported it over to Sandcastle Carrera, is to bring every guest on stage at the end of the show, 100% of them. So the entire audience is up on the stage with the cast, because our theater at Sandcastle is unique, right? It's not like most of the venues on Guam. It's a proper theater. It's the same size as a Broadway stage, bigger than most. It's 70 feet high to the top of the stage. The stage is 105 feet wide. So, people come up and they're amazed, and they're with the cast and they're taking pictures and they're engaged in an experience. And, in fact, our company is BG Tours, but we're rebranding this year to BG Experiences, because we're not really a tour company. We don't sell tours, but this is a leftover nomenclature from the boom boom days of the Japanese bubble, where the travel agents sold air hotel packages and everything else was a so-called optional tour. Guam's the only place that calls them optional tours. Every place else calls them activities or attractions or things to do or experiences. So to answer your question, getting the customer to experience the stage, experience the people, and kind of touch and engage with the adventure is where things are heading, I think. So that's a micro innovation for us, is just pushing everybody up on stage at the end of the show. There's a long answer, but
Great,
idea.
great. No, thank you for sharing that. So looking back on your journey, what's motivated you to pursue a career in tourism and giving guests these special, unique tourist experiences?
Sure. So it started, I was a musician. I started playing music when I was 4 and 5 years old. Started working in clubs when I was 9 and 10 years old. And I've always, actually, even when I was in elementary school, I would produce shows in the basement for my parents using my siblings and charge my parents admission to come in, ticket, So I guess I had it in me for a long time. But I guess the hospitality side started as a musician and an entertainer, and sort of dealing with customers in that way. And then I came out here in 1987 and started the first business, had an idea and found an investor and built the sandcastle. That was sort of a transition into tourism and hospitality in that way.
What brought you out to Guam and where did you come from?
So I was living in New Jersey. I'm from Massachusetts. I was a musician living in New York City, more or less. Answered a classified
Okay.
ad, New York Local 802, I think it was, the New York City Musicians Union, had an ad, classified ad, pianists wanted for Guam and Japan. So I called the booking agent and I said, I don't know where Guam is, but I don't want to go, but I'll go to Japan. So he said, you got to go to Guam first. It was a bait and switch. There was never a gig in Japan, right? So I came out here in 87 for 3 months and I played piano at the Okura Hotel here. I was 24 years old and I saw a show the first night I was here. The show was pretty bad. Service was bad. Food was bad. Full of Japanese tourists paying $100 each 30 years ago. And I just thought I could do a better job at it. So put
Could do a
together,
better job. Yep.
looked at, did a little business plan that summer. Didn't know what I was doing, right? I was a music major in school, conducting classical, right? So I put together what is a business plan, just using common sense. In those days, we used to use the phone book. Remember the yellow pages? So I knew what the revenue could be. It's easy. You take a calculator, how many customers times, what are you going to charge? But the expense
Right.
side, I didn't know where to start. So I looked around the hotel, the light bulb staff, talked to the waiters, how much do you earn? Started building a plan. And then I took the phone book and started with accountant. Yeah, I need one of those. How much is an accountant? Seriously, I just went from A to Z in the phone book, put together the expenses, put together a business plan, found a lawyer who was frequenting the bar where I was playing piano, and talked him into introducing me to a Japanese investor. He got 2% as a broker fee, and off we went. And I talked the Japanese gentleman into loaning me $40 million to build the sandcastle at age 24 with long hair. So that's where it started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Outstanding. That's an incredible story. That's
Yeah,
an incredible
I was
story.
very lucky. At the peak of the Japanese bubble, and the investor was like a father, like a real, we have a father-son kind of relation. I eventually bought him out, but he's a super, super honorable, nice gentleman. Yeah. Lucky. I was very fortunate.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that gives us a peek and a window into who Mark is. And can you talk a little bit about, the businesses that you run? Because you started there with the theater with Sandcastle and you kind of expanded from there. So can you talk about what's in your portfolio?
Sure. So the Sandcastle was the first project. It included the club. It was called Onyx originally, and then it became Globe, and then more recently it became Zoe. And also more
Yes,
recently, we added the restaurant Animos in the front, right? The Greek Mediterranean
yes.
restaurant, right? So that building was our first building. We opened in 1990. Typhoon the week we opened, Persian Gulf War a month later, super typhoon our second year, took the roof off, 8.1 earthquake our third year. It was I learned how to run a business, right? So during that first 3 years, but we got the business stable. And once it was stable, I ran it for about 10 years. And then I met my wife in Singapore and decided to have kids. So I moved to Vegas to raise my boys in the States, and just became full-time dad for 10 years. So I built Sandcastle for 10 years, moved away for 10 years, just being dad. Best decision I ever made, best thing I've ever done in my life. And then came back. And when I came back, that's when we started expand. I'm an entrepreneur, so I want to always do new things. So when I came back is when we started the dinner cruise and the beach and Tautotasi, and then subsequently, so I'll slow down. So we have a dinner cruise, Sunset Dinner Cruise. We have the beach bar. It's called The Beach down next to
Yeah.
the right? It's about a, I don't know, 300-400 capacity restaurant. Then we have Tasi. That's a 500 seat on the ocean Polynesian kind of show. I say Polynesian euphemistically, just for those who don't understand what we're doing, but it is really a tribute to Chamorro culture and to the regional culture. We did a lot of study at that time to try to make it as authentic as possible, but that's a whole other story. And then we have, I think that's it for the current businesses: Carreras, O Animos, Beach Bar, Tatotasi, and the cruise. We also started Ride the Ducks. That's inactive at the moment just because of the volume of tourists or lack of tourists. And then there are a few businesses that came and went: Sandcastle in Saipan, Sea Touch, interactive stingray and shark experience in Saipan, the Visitors Channel Media Group. So, those are some things that have come and gone. But right now it's the Sandcastle building with the 3 entities and the beach with a couple things down there for the most part, right? Plus the cruise.
Outstanding overview. A lot of your fingers in a lot of different things and a lot of different experiences that you provide, not just the tourists who visit Guam, but also the people on Guam, like myself. So I enjoy a lot of your different venues. Innovation leaders, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson here. Are you ready to elevate your vehicle fleet operations? Fleet Solutions is an AI-enabled fleet management system. Fleet Solutions provides real-time video, smart analytics, and total efficiency. Keep your people safe and keep your business moving forward faster than ever before. Fleet Solutions, arriving tomorrow, today. Visit thefleetsolutions.net or call 671-988-9748 to schedule your personalized demo and revolutionize your fleet operations today. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the GVB is and how does it relate to Guam's tourism industry?
Yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions about GVB, right? And I've been, I guess, a member of GVB for 30 years. And as you mentioned, I was the vice chair, I was the chairman. I chaired the Japan Marketing Committee for a while. GVB, I think a lot of people on Guam think GVB should be mowing lawns and making the place look nice. It's actually GVB's enabling legislation. It was founded primarily to promote tourism. It's an NTO, a National Tourism Organization, and a DMO, or a Destination Marketing Organization. That's its primary focus, is to promote Guam, promote local participation in the industry, promote the local culture. That's part of the mandate. Help establish tourism facilities, collect tourism data, and then the word beautification is thrown in there. But it's not really GVB's mandate to be emptying dumpsters in Epal Beach Park. That's DPR, right? Department of Parks and Rec and DPW,
Yes.
Public Works. Those are really the maintenance organizations. But over the years, they have a lot to cover, those organizations, the whole island. So it's kind of fallen on GVB to take care of Tuman, and GVB does it. We just kind of roll up our sleeves and get it done. GVB cuts the grass around the island. And also, just to be clear, it's not a line agency. A lot of people get confused or think, the money of GVB could be better spent doing something else. But for clarity, it's not the government's money in a sense. I mean, it's not the people's tax money, I should say it that way. The money
How is it funded then?
By the tourists. The tourists pay a hotel occupancy tax when they go stay at the hotel, 11% of the room revenue. So if the room is $200, then the tourist pays an extra $22 into the hotel occupancy. It becomes part of the room rate. But basically, the hotels pay they charge the customer 11% of revenue. That goes in a pot of money. That's called the hotel occupancy tax, or the tourist attraction fund, the TAF. It's the same thing, right? So the tax goes into the tourist attraction fund. And then the TAF, by mandate, is supposed to only be spent on tourism. And over the years, it gets spent on half on tourism and half on other stuff. I think in more recent years, they've kind of let it be for tourism, because tourism is just, really underwater and needs the help, needs more than what the TAF provides. Right. But to answer your question, that fund is paid by the tourists, not by the taxpayers of Guam. right? It is
That's
administered by the
interesting.
legislature, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially like what you led with. If it's not paid by the government or the taxpayers, then how does GVB get sucked into all of this beautification stuff that maybe is a minor part of its mission statement, if you
Well,
will?
so one of the problems or challenges for GVB as a whole is it serves an awful lot of masters, right? So, the board of GVB consists of 5 members appointed by the governor, including one from the mayor, 4 elected by the membership, 2 elected by the or appointed by the legislature, and 1 elected by that group. So GVB, it still does have to deal with the legislature because the money goes into the tourist attraction fund, but the legislature decides how much of that fund they're going to give back to GVB. So, the GVB management is constantly
Okay.
having to, well, there are 5 board members appointed by the governor. Everybody has to salute to the Magahaga, which is the leader of the island, right? So, you have to make sure that the governor's mission is supported. We're all under one leader, and that's the CEO of the island. So GVB has to make sure that they support whatever he or she wants. GVB also has to
Hmm.
service the legislature that gives it its budget every year, but it also has to take care of its members. It's a membership organization. The members pay dues. It's a unique animal. It's not a line agency. Technically it's a private public membership corporation, and it's a semi-autonomous agency, quasi-governmental agency, all these words, but they all kind of say the same thing. It's like, it's not a duck and it's not a cow, and it's kind of somewhere in between, right? So, so GVB is constantly dealing with its members, the industry, travel agents, legislature, governor, so, and its team, its own employees, right? Who are classified employees. So, a couple of unclassified, but mostly classified. So it's a very peculiar organization in that sense.
Interesting. And like you said, serving many masters that maybe sometimes when you get into um, difficult decision making, difficult strategy development, it might get little bit contentious trying to resolve and balance the different perspectives of all the different stakeholders in order to get everybody moving in the right direction, huh?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think that challenge lies primarily with management. Management has a hard job because on top of all those other stakeholders we just talked about, the president also has to deal with the board, 13 people or 12 people technically. So it's very tricky for management, I think, to serve all those masters. I think for the board, it's a little bit different. They're supposed to be servicing the mandate of the enabling legislation. And for my
Right.
particular role now as the chair of the recovery committee, I don't deal with any of that, it's very effective because the board has its own politics, right? It has its own dynamics it has to follow. But the recovery committee it just started. It's never been done at GVB before, and it's just a little side group off to the side. It's very advisory in a sense, right? So our meetings are not open to 8,000 people. It's a small group that gets together and kind of drives the strategy. And it's a really strong group. It started, it's okay if I digress. I'm not answering your
No, no,
question.
no, please. This is
So,
great. This is great.
so
Great
the,
background.
so the recovery committee, I sat here as a business owner during COVID, getting really frustrated as everybody else did, and watching, a little bit of inaction, I would say. Part of it is because of our source markets, Japan and Korea. They were the last ones to travel. It's not a Guam decision. I mean, if the governor had said we're opening up the day after COVID, after closure, it wouldn't have mattered because the
Yeah.
tourists, they're not traveling, right? In fact, Japan, even when they finally did travel, they'd have to quarantine back home for a week or two. So, it took a while in fact, even now today, Japan outbound is still 70% of COVID, pre-COVID. Excuse me, it's minus 70% of pre-COVID, minus 65 today. So even
Yeah.
today, yeah,
So I'm going to jump on that. I knew this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, but this is might as well right now. what is going on with the Japanese market? I mean, I hear people talk about, it's the strength of the dollar versus the weakness of the yen, and that's the major factor. But it seems like it's more than that that's keeping the Japanese tourists away. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, so in my role as the recovery committee, I've spent a lot of time talking to, we met with EY Japan, for example. We met, PKF did their study here. We met with JTB Consulting Group that publishes an annual report about outbound Japanese. We're really trying to understand that question exactly. And I think certainly the yen is one of the items. But let's talk about that for a second, because Guam's market share used to be 3.4% pre-COVID. In other words, there were 20 million Japanese who traveled, 3.5% came to Guam. Okay. In fact, if I go back 15 years ago, it was 5 to 6%, and it slowly dwindled down to 3.5, but it stabilized at 3.5. It's currently at about 1.4%. So not only is Japanese outbound down 65%, our market share is only 1.4% of that 14 million. That used to be 20
Yeah,
million.
they're going other places.
Yeah, they're going other places, right?
Yeah.
So part of it is, and part of it's because of the yen, right? Part of the decline is because the dollar's the yen is 145. It used to be 106 pre-COVID, right? But there are other factors. So for example, Hawaii and the mainland U.S. are not down as much as Guam is. And one of the reasons, okay, Hawaii has visit friends and family, they timeshare owners and so forth, and the U.S. has some business travel. But I've done a lot of studies. If you extrapolate where we should be down 30%, not 60%, and it's part of it is the yen, but part of it is also we didn't really do much to attract them coming out of COVID. And then the day we just got out of COVID, we got smacked with a Category 5 super typhoon. You got all the private sector businesses that didn't have any money for 4 years bleeding. Now they get slammed. The insurance companies, I still don't have reimbursement from malware 2.5 years later. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, and I'm not the only one. The insurance companies this time around really are pushing the envelope in terms of good faith and bad faith, but it's a different story. The point is the private sector guys are out of cash. And so the buildings got blown up. I had $7 million in damage here and a few million down at the beach. I have $10 million sitting in a bank account somewhere. So you do what you can do, but it's still rough around the edges. But you're trying to get back on your feet. There's no money to, we spruce up what we can, what the audience sees, right? But for hotels and things, I mean, there's a lot of buildings in Tumon that need painting. It's just water blasting and painting. And like, for example, there's one retailer, well, I'm not going to name names and put somebody under the bus, but I'll tell you, there's a global retailer, like multi-billion-dollar company. Okay. They closed their building here. The building's got mold all over it. I contacted their headquarters in Europe and said, could you just water blast the building? They said, no.
Right.
It's $30,000 to water blast. We can't afford that. Like you're a $10 billion company. Like water blast your damn property, you know what I mean? But it's indicative, and it's an example of everybody's like up to here right now. And so you've got the public and the private sector both. The private sector unable to really clean up and put a good foot forward, and it's in the middle of a downward spiral. And you've got the public sector, so like they're riding the gravy train of the military buildup so much. It's like tourism. Yeah, we don't need tourism. In the meantime, the budget went from 700 million to 1.4 billion, and the clock is just ticking of when the construction buildup ends. The military's here to stay, and I love it. It's great, and they'll have a lot of jobs and a lot of things going on. But the construction's going to end, and there's going to be $100 to $150 million hole in the Gov Guam budget in about 6 or 7 years from now. If we don't get going on tourism today and put some money back into it, we have a problem. It's you can see it doesn't take a genius to just look on the horizon. You can see the tsunami coming, So I don't know if I answered your question about the Japanese. It's partly yen, it's partly the product, I guess is what I was trying to say, right? The product's poor, we haven't really improved it. In Guam in particular, we used to be 70 or 80% wholesaler driven. The Japanese Travel Bureau, JTB, HIS, Kintetsu, all the agents. travel agents, you know, and
Right.
20-30% what we call FIT, or free independent traveler. The rest of the world's the opposite. It's always been 70% FIT and 30% wholesaler, 80-20. Guam was the last bastion of,
Yes. The
wholesaler
group tours. Yeah. Yeah.
tours. And then in COVID,
Yeah.
it went away. They sent all their people back to Japan. Then we reopened after COVID. And now, like, where's the travel agent? Of course, they sell packages in
Yeah.
Japan. They're not present here on the ground, so they don't, the buses, the infrastructure.
Right.
Guam's infrastructure was built up around a wholesaler-driven industry. That's shifted now, and we're trying to find our way. My own business as well. Guam and my business are running in parallel, trying to figure out how to market to direct to consumers, B2C, right? Sounds easy. Oh, social media, sure. I've got 6 businesses. You got Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, name a couple more. Naver in Korean, Yahoo in Japan, Times, Japanese, English, Korean, and Chinese. I mean, we're talking about like 90 social media channels. You can't run 90.
Yeah.
We have like 20, and we have a team trying to manage that. It's a lot. But Guam needs to kind of catch up, right? We can't just keep showing pictures of. Somebody showed me the other day, said, "Don't you think our Instagram is great?" I said, "Not really. That's why. It's a beautiful picture." I said, "It's a white beach and a coconut tree. Is it Vietnam, Philippines, or Guam? I have no idea. It looks the same to me." Like, it's true. We need to promote our unique selling points, our USPs, not just sun and sand is important for sure, but we can't hang our hat on that and call it a day anymore.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you think are Guam's unique selling points. I mean, um, you know, uh, some say it's a little slice of Americana in Asia. Some people say, this is a quick tropical destination without having to go as far as Hawaii and get that slice of Americana. There's some who say it's scuba diving, but I think that's kind of a small thing. We haven't done it on the scale of like a Palau or something. What do you think is the unique selling point of Guam to get Japanese and Korean tourists and others in here?
So I think when you say unique selling point, you really have to take the first word and kind of take a position of what that means. Unique selling point. Because if you want selling points, we can talk about sun, sand, sun, sand, sea, the 3 S's they call it. You can talk about scuba diving. You can talk about all the things that people talk about. Those are great features, but they aren't unique. They have scuba diving, and our core competitor, for example, people think it's Hawaii. It's not Hawaii. It's Okinawa. That's the same travel distance. That's a 3-hour flight, family oriented, easy to get to, not overly expensive like Hawaii. So Okinawa is really our core competitor. In the meantime, the Japanese went from, I think there's 10 million arrivals to Okinawa right now. 7.5 million are domestic Japanese. And I didn't finish the one thing we didn't talk about. Hang on one second. Let me just jot a note to myself. The one thing we didn't talk about when we talk about why did Guam go down so much, it's because the Japanese have decided to travel domestically. During COVID, the government gave everybody vouchers, right? Please travel within Japan. Help our local hotels. They gave $150 travel vouchers, and everybody started traveling within Japan. And they got familiar with it. They got comfortable with it. Pre-COVID, 30-something% of Japanese held a passport. Today, it's 17%. They're not traveling in, right? I mean, and they don't want to travel anywhere. They're quite happy where they are. And when I told you I met with JTB Consulting and these other guys, a lot of them took the position or told me that, Mark, the thing is, COVID scared a lot of Japanese. They're kind of timid anyway, right? And they don't really feel comfortable going abroad to someplace. What if there's another COVID? What if they have a health emergency? Like if we travel in Japan, it's first of all, it's affordable, and we feel safe, right, and comfortable. So to answer your question on the USPs, yes, what is unique that only we have, right? One is America in Asia. America in Asia is nobody else has. Another thing that's unique is our particular collection of attractions. Now, people always say there's not much to do in Guam. I want to slap them in the face. If you look at, I mean, I'm in the attractions business. So people say there's nothing to do at night. Pre-COVID, there were 22 dinner shows. Hawaii's got like 5.
Yeah.
Right? So even today, right, there's the Nico Barbecue, there's Tautatasi, there's our Carrera show, there's a Super American Circus, there's Fisheye. I mean, there's a dozen, there's the magic show over at the West End. There are all these, the Anthony Reed's magic show. There's my dinner cruise, Zoe.
Yes.
How many things do you want to do at night? They're only here 3 nights, okay? So there's enough activities. Not only are there enough activities, I challenge you to tell me where else in the world you can have a show on the scale of Carrera, which was 30 Cirque du Soleil designers in a $70 million theater. And the club Zoe, I'll put it up against any club anywhere. And at the same time, walk down the street and go skydiving, and then go scuba diving, and then go marine sports. I mean, there's adventure, hiking. There are so many things to do on Guam, but we do a terrible job of marketing it. We're too busy saying it's got white sand and coconut trees. We don't really talk about the unique
diversity of experiences.
Right. So that's one. And then the third one that's unique is, I guess it's twofold. One is sort of the melting pot side of things, right? Because you could go to Thailand, you see Thailand, but in Guam, you've got this sort of America meets local island culture. But the third one that's actually the strongest of all of them, I think, is the unique Chamorro culture. But I got to be very careful when I say that. It is unique. It's 4,000 years old. I know a fair amount about it because we built one of the other attractions that came and went was Lanatla Park. We built actually a replica of a Chamorro village with 20 Chamorros and sadis and a day in the life. It was amazing. And nobody went. It's just like not attended.
That's the one that was the river telephone down the telephone river.
That is still open, and that's a great attraction. That's David Tidinko and his group. It's called Valley of the Latte, and they do a great job.
Valley of the Latte. Yeah,
they do. There's another attraction in our list of unique things, right? But no, we did a little replica Chamorro village right here at Gun Beach, next to the beach bar, or in the jungle near the beach bar, right? And there wasn't a lot of take up on it for a variety of reasons, but. And I guess what I'm getting to is when we say the Chamorro culture is unique, you have to be careful, right? They don't come to Guam to see a sling stone in the museum, okay? In fact, 1.5% of the visitors go to the $30 million museum that was funded by the Tourist Attraction Fund, by the way. So they when they say culture, people think, oh, the artifacts, Pro Canoe. And Pro Canoe is amazing, don't get me wrong. But I'll give you a good example. My son is 27 years old. He's been to 78 countries, okay? And he goes to a country and he wants to experience the local people, the local culture.
Yes.
Doesn't want to ride on a tour bus and follow the flag and see the Great Wall from a bus seat. And then he wants to go have dinner in some Chinese guy's hut and understand what that's all about, right? And I think the very unique thing about Guam that I can say, I'm not Chamorro, but I can say that spirit of an Afamalig in that warmth, Chamorro spirit, Chamorro sense, that's what's unique. Yeah. That's what we need to kind of bottle and package the market, right? It's kind of, and that's why I love the Tumon night market, because in Chamorro Village for that matter. So it's the tourists come here wanting to engage with the locals, right? And so the Japanese and the Koreans, you talk to a Korean family in the elevator, say hello. The parents are all say hello, talk English, right? So I mean, it's that engagement with the local. It's just like I said, beach experiences. It's that human experience that people long for, that they want to. And that's one of the reasons our backstage tour is fun after the show. It's not about you see the facility. It's about engaging, being like arm's length away from the performer, or as we're talking about the culture. Going to somebody's house in Inarahan for dinner, or being in the night market and talking to the girl who's making the handicrafts,
And Guam is one of the unique places because of that culture, who you'll get an opportunity to do that. As a stranger, they'll invite you to the fiesta, they'll invite you to their home for dinner or whatever. And that is a unique uh, experience that's uniquely Guam, uniquely Chamorro culture. And
It is.
that's, like you said, if you can bottle that and say, hey, you're going to get this when you come to the island, that's the thing that'll keep people coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So the unique
Yeah.
selling point is, in fact, the inaphomalic spirit of the people, not just the Chamorro people, but the island people, both, right?
Yes. 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 So let's talk about tourism and cycles of ups and downs. A lot of people are focused right now. That's kind of what you're been hired to look at, the recovery plan. And people are talking about this downturn as if there's never been a downturn before in Guam tourism. Can you talk about kind of the historical cycles, ups and downs in Guam tourism and how bad or good, the recovery was, or how bad it maybe affected it during one of those previous downturns?
Yeah, but I just wanted to key in on one word you said, that's what I've been hired to do, because I would love to. Do I mean I get paid?
That's
I
right. I'm sorry. I used the wrong verb.
want to get paid. I want to be
You're
hired. No, the recovery. I'll talk about your historical ups and downs, but to be clear, because I skipped over a little, the recovery committee, right? So I worked with a group of guys
Yes.
for almost a year putting this plan together, 85-page plan, and you can find it on the GVB website. It's a very comprehensive
Oh, I
plan.
read it.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yep.
so the guys in that group that deserve a little recognition. It's not just me. There were four of us that really spent a lot of time on it. Sam Shinohara, who's the president of United Airlines, or managing director. Ken Yanagisawa, who's the president of PHR Corp, the Ken Corp Hotels. Ben Ferguson, who's the vice president of PHR. The four of us, and then now, after we established the formal committee, so to speak, to implement this or to kind of take it to the next step, we added Kin Cook, who was
Yes.
the chair for a little while and is now the vice chair, president of the Bank of Guam, and Nate DeKnight, former president of GVB. So that is the group. It's 6, 7 guys who represent probably $1 billion in investment and 35% of employment on the island in tourism sector. So it's a very strong group, and our role is really advisory in trying to map things out and guide management a little bit on hopefully what we think where things should go. And then there's some other guys like Ho Yoon, who's the owner of the Dusitani and Cortec president. He jumps in and out a little bit. For example, he heads the Korean marketing committee within GVB. He's been very helpful as well. So on the historical side, to answer your question, I've lived through the last 35 years of Category 5 storms and Korean airline crash and everything else. But when you talk about historical downturns, there is nothing that has ever hit us like this. Because when a typhoon hits, you know it's coming back. It's you got 6, 9 months, 12 months of recovery. You suck it up, you kind of cut down your staffing, and it's going to come back up again. But that's not the case here. Our market share is down to 1.4%. Korea was 2.6, now it's 1.3. Why are we down 50% in Korea? No place else is down 50% in Korea, just Guam. So what's going on? What are the fundamental root causes of this? And I think you asked me that question. For Japan and Korea are very different, right? They're very, very different animals. And so for Japan, part of it is that the whole outbound is suppressed, right? But our market share is down. And I think part of it's we're tired destination, nothing new. Part of it is the yen. Part of it's, when we say the yen, it's landing fees, right? As part of the cost of operation to come out here. So we'll talk about airline incentives in a moment. But for Korea, it's about airlift. It's about having enough seats to get out here. So they're a little bit different. With Korea, there's demand.
Okay.
Need supply. For Japan, we need to kind of spark the supply. So we just went out with an RFP for Japan for a market consultant of sorts, right? I hate the word consultant, but we really need, you're talking to me. I'm a white guy sitting in Guam. We need to talk to the Japanese guys in Japan. We talk to the Korean guys in Korea. What's your perception? where do you think we should be? How are we perceived now? Where should we be perceived? How should we change it? With niche markets, if we're going to go after 3-generation families or silvers, the older people, or families, or students, like weddings, like what's next for the next 10 years? Where are the key groups, and who should we be targeting, and how do we message them, and how do we target them? And all of those questions should be answered by people in the source markets, not here. I love our marketing team here. I think they're great, but we need to hear from the source market. You know what I mean? That's right. To answer your question about downturns, there is no precedent for this. We've been down for 5 years at this point. 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That's not a downturn. That's not a cycle. That we're smacked. I mean, the cement is hardening around our ankles, Rob. And I don't mean it in a doom and gloom way. There's an opportunity. I'm an optimistic guy. I'm an entrepreneur, but we keep diddling around and we're going to find ourselves in deep trouble. We need to really put the proper investment in tourism and turn it around. And we did. I have to give credit to the legislature and thank them for the airline incentives. If you want to talk about that for a second. Yeah. Airline incentives are very interesting. Yeah. When I first heard airline incentives, I thought the same way. You see a lot of the guys in the PDN, the 7 trolls, right? It's the same guys every week. And like, why give the money why are we bribing the airlines is one of the things they say. I understand that perspective. I kind of had the same feeling until I understood it better. So I talked to this guy, Adam Sachs. He's the CEO of Tourism Economics. They're the leading economists in the world in the tourism space. They're an Oxford economic company, okay? They did the EIS and the EIAs for economic impact assessment for Guam for 10 or 15 years or something, right? And Adam's a very bright guy. And I was asking him about airline incentives. He said, Mark, if you're not giving incentives today, in this day and age, you're not getting the planes, period. I don't care where you're at. It's not Guam, it's everywhere. And the reason is Boeing and Airbus both stopped manufacturing during COVID. And they are like 5-10, they're long lead items. You buy a plane, it doesn't come out in 2 years, right? So
their order book is way, way behind.
Way behind. It'll catch up in about 2 years, okay, 18 months to 24 months. But in the next 18, 24 months, there aren't enough planes. And so if you're a Korean airline carrier, where do you want to fly? You can take that plane and fly to Tokyo 4 times a day, or you can fly to Guam once. And then not only that, but the landing fees. See, most people don't understand this landing fee idea. You take the cost of the airport, say it's $30 million to operate the airport, for example, right? And you divide it by the number of people who land, enplanements. So in 2019, we had 1.6 million people. You take $30 million, you divide it by 1.6 million people, everybody pays $18. They don't pay, the airline pays. So the airline, part of their ticket price, they have to pay the Guam airport $18 for every customer who gets off the plane. Except it's not $18 anymore. Why not? Because you got the same $30 million expense. Airport's not doing a bad job.
Less people.
They're holding the cost. But now you divide it by 800,000 people. And the cost per enplanement is now $34, up from 18. Not bad enough. The yen was 106. Now it's 145. It used to cost a Japan carrier 1,900 yen per person to land a plane in Guam. It now costs them 5,000. Okay. So without some help, incentive, bribe, call it what you want, without some support, they're not flying here. They don't. Why should they? And not only do they have the cost of the landing fees, all their expenses are in dollars. You got the ground handling, you've got fuel tax, American fuel tax. It's, and one of the airlines told me Guam is one of the most expensive places in the planet to land a plane at this point. So, you couple that, compound it on top of a tire destination that is in need of some investment. It's just, it's all of these things, and the yen, it's all of these things sort of cumulatively together. So GVB tried an experiment. This is part of the recovery committee's recommendation. So we said, let's try it. There are 3 or 4 different ways you do these incentives. One is an MRG, minimum revenue guarantee. This is useful for things like the Taiwan flight, right? Where there is no service. And you go to the carrier and you say, I want you to fly Taiwan. And they say, we don't know if there's enough business. We don't really want to do it. And you say, tell you what, what's your break even? 70% load factor, for example? If you get less than 70%, we'll pay the
difference.
Not necessarily the whole difference, but we'll pay something and help you out. You know what I mean? Pay some of the difference, right? That's a minimum revenue guarantee. That's very common for new destinations, and that's the structure that United Airlines has for Taiwan, right? And quite often, you get these things going. Like we did it when I was the chairman. We did for Beijing and Shanghai with Dynamic Air and United Airlines. For Beijing and Shanghai nonstop direct, we had that for a while. And we put the MRGs in place. And you know what it cost us? Zero, because they hit their 70% load factor. They're good. That's perfect. That's the optimum airline incentive where it doesn't really cost you anything in the end. It doesn't work so well for things like this Korean Air situation because they're getting crushed. They land the landing. We got to give them, in this case, we pay a little stipend per flight. It works out to $15 or $20 per seat. Okay. That passenger spends $1,000 on Guam. The direct tax money for a hotel occupancy tax and GRT is $150. So you spend $20 to put a plane in per person. You get the government's getting $150 back. And the island's getting $1,000 of that gets the direct, indirect wages, taxes on wages. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did it, and we got the Korean airline, the Korean carriers used to fly about 78,000 seats a month pre-COVID. Now it's been sitting at 30,000 for the last year and a half, 2 years, 30,000 a month. Can I tell you something?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get 35,000 arrivals if you only have 30,000 seats coming in the market, right? So how are we doing compared to 2019? We're down 50%. What are we doing next year? I don't know, but we don't have enough seats. You know what I mean? You can't get them in. You can't exceed the number of seats. And the load factors are in Korea are typically 85%-ish, or 84% of the plane is full, right? So we need to add seats. So we gave them incentives, and we took the monthly seats from 30,000 to 60,000. That's this last quarter now. It'll be October, November, December coming up. You're gonna see a lot more seats in the market. Now GVB's got to step up and start spending some more marketing money, but our budget is limited by the TAF. Now the legislature stepped up and approved $10 million. We asked for 11, but they approved 10, that's fine, for airline incentives for 2026. Because that 30 going up to 60 is currently scheduled to go back down to 24 in January. But we've got these incentives now, thanks to the legislature, we can hold the seats up, right? Does it make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And what you're doing is you're giving me an education to understand the depth of what you mean when you say, if we keep doing things the way we're doing it and we don't change, this recovery could take a decade or more. Now I'm starting to understand it in depth because you're presenting all of these different factors that are acting on each other and making us kind of stay in this hole, if you will, or the hole getting worse, getting deeper. So,
right.
Yeah, this is great perspective.
Okay. So I guess the next logical step after we've talked about airline incentives would be to talk about the other things the recovery committee is acting on. There are 4 pillars or 4 legs of the recovery committee recommendations. One is add airlift from Korea. So for Korea, it's about adding seats. For Japan, it's about adding a low-cost carrier. Like in Korea, when I was the chair, we had Korean Airline fly, and we added Air Busan, Air Seoul, T-Way, Jin Air, Jeju Air, right? So we got all these low-cost carriers. So if Korean Air is a full-service carrier, the price is here. What happens when you get 5 competitors in the market, right? So we'd like to try to get a low-cost carrier from Japan. At the same time, we have to be very careful and conscious about United. And I don't mean it gratuitously. Sam's a friend, but the point is they've been loyal and with us for 50 years or something, right? So they can take their plane and move it wherever they want. So we have to kind of find this balance. And so we need to support United while we're also trying to get a low-cost carrier in here. And kind of maybe try to find the cities that United doesn't want to fly from and put an LCC, in Sendai, Fukuoka, Nagoya, something like, these sort of outer cities. That's one option. We've talked to all the LCCs. Unfortunately, Skymark, JetBlue, all these different Peach, Vanilla, the different subsidiaries of the full service ANA and so forth. For a variety of reasons, the LCCs are hard to attract here and right now. And one is interested, but they don't have the ETOPS requirement equipment to come into the US, for example. So I think the idea of getting an LCC, as much as it's really important, is not on the immediate horizon. On the other hand, United was able to secure that slot at Haneda, which is really helpful. You know, that Narita is 2 hours outside of Tokyo. Haneda is right in the middle of Tokyo. So it makes it a lot easier.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's a red-eye slot. We're lucky to get the slot, honestly, for Guam, and United worked really hard at getting that. So one of the things we're working at is to try to get a wide body aircraft put on that, you know, a 350 seat aircraft instead of a 150 seat aircraft, to take advantage of that Haneda flight, because unlike a lot of the flights from Tokyo are only 50% tourists, and 50% is military, contractors, locals, whatever, going back and forth. They're filling up that seat. Whereas the Haneda flight is really tourists, right? And the hotels have done a great job, Ken Corp and Dusit, in allowing early morning check-in at 4 a.m. without, it's plenty of rooms, right? But that's kind of them. They're not charging you for an early check-in, right? And they're not charging you for a late checkout. Everybody's doing their part to try, right, to try to get things going. But we're also looking at new markets. So we're looking at, Philippines is not a new market per se, but we're looking at Cebu, and I think you'll probably hear an announcement soon about Cebu. So if it hasn't already been announced. So Cebu,
very nice.
Talking about, I really would like to see a wide body come out of Manila in the daytime, right? Now that's probably PR, not United, because United's hard for them to get a slot in the daytime, but Philippine Air, you know, they can probably squeeze it. I say day flight because I'll tell you, like Hong Kong, when they flew direct, I don't want to fly that flight. I fly through Tokyo to get back to Guam, because you leave at 11 o'clock at night, the seat pitch goes back that far, you land, a basket case takes 2 days to forget it. I'll just fly through Tokyo, right? So getting a day flight is helpful, right? And getting a wide body is helpful, because then you get 3-class service, you get a lay flat bed, you get a customer who's not normally going to come to Guam. You get the guy that owns the business instead of the office lady. Right, so 3-cabin service, day flight, those are really different differentiators that would be very helpful. So Manila with a wide body would be fantastic. A day flight would be fantastic. It's probably less likely, but the Cebu is very likely. Australia is a really good market, and I think that's high probability of coming at some point. Hong Kong, we could go back to looking at, much like Taiwan. Singapore, my wife is Singaporean. I mean, I know that market very well. The thing I like about Singapore is it's really easy to create awareness there. It's only the size of Guam, more or less, right? So you get 6 million, 7 million people, but it doesn't take a lot to let everybody know who you are. Whereas in Malaysia, which is another thing that GVB has been looking at, okay, it's similar travel time, flight time, but how are you going to let the country of Malaysia know you exist? It's not so simple, right? But here's a stat that knocked me over when I realized this statistic, and this is why Japan and Korea, a lot of people say, go after the new markets. And it's true, we have to go after new markets, because Japan's not going to come back in the next 2 years, right? The outbound. It's just not. It'll come back, but it's going to be a slow, gradual 5-7 year recovery to get back to 2019 outbound, 20 million outbound. The new markets are, like, I would say they're icing on the cake, but if you take a narrow body aircraft that holds 157 people, right? 160 people, and you fly it twice a week, in 52 weeks, that's about 20,000 people, 20,000 seats, okay? So we have 20,000 seats a year in Taiwan right now. We could add Hong Kong. We can add Singapore. We can add Australia. We can add another one. Now you got 5 narrow bodies twice a week. What's the total seats? 100,000 seats, okay?
Yeah.
Hold that thought. 1 wide body out of Korea, 7 days a week, is 100,000 seats. 1 airplane. 1 airplane out of Korea, new airplane, wide body, is the same number of seats per year as 5 new destinations flying twice a week. So we'll focus on, right now our penetration or market share in Korea is 1.3%. Get it to 1.4%, 1.5%. We're not going back to 2.6, at least get back to 1.8, So our goal now is to just focus on Japan and Korea and pulling them back up a bit. And at the same time, plant the seeds and start going after the laying the foundation to grab these other markets, because those aren't, you don't flip a light switch. You want to reposition aircraft, build a market. It's like it's a 1 year in the future adventure, right? It's at least 6 months. It's not, let's fly Brisbane and we start flying tomorrow. They got to move the airplane over there, right? And you got to kind of get it in the system. You got to get it in the system 3-4 months early to sell it. Not just open it up and hope you fill it. So the airlift, I guess what I'm saying is the airlift discussion goes beyond, it's sort of multidimensional, right? One side of it is we need seats from Korea. We could use some seats from Japan and targeted areas like Haneda, for example. And then we want to lay in some other new markets and then put it all together. That's sort of does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not a one silver bullet. What you've got to do is you got to work many different fronts simultaneously to achieve the effect that you're looking for.
That's right. And then on the other leg, so you mentioned the hop on. So you have airline seats. That's one. Add supply. You have introduce new things, new events, new attractions. That's harder because you want it to be of scale enough to make a difference, right? Opening one new jet ski operation is not going to cause people to come to Guam, right? But promoting what we have is part of it. But the other part, like the 2-month night market that you suggested, that's a nice little vig, not just because of the locals mixing with the tourist, and also allowing 50 or 70, not allowing, providing an opportunity for 50 or 70 local vendors. The average vendor over there is making $2,000 on a Sunday night, and they're selling tchotchkes that cost them less than 50%. So, it's nice change for a night, right? $1,000 in their pocket, right? The food trucks are doing 3,000, I think. So the 2-month night market is one example of something new to promote, right? A new activity to promote. We also have Water Bomb. We've got some other new events that we're looking at bringing in. We have a Guam International Dance Festival at the end of the year. So some new things to promote, right? New things to shout about. That's one. And one is the destination improvement, which is the hot bond that we were talking about, right? So
yes.
So we discussed what the HOT was, that the tourist pays a tax at the hotel, government collects it, holds it, gives some back to GVB, most of it to GVB. You can go to the market and borrow against that income stream, right? So we've had 2 hot bonds in the time I've been here. One was under Governor Gutierrez. He did a great job getting the Pleasure Island jazzed up and getting the floodwater going to the Fujita Ponding Basin, which unfortunately, I don't know if you history, I don't want to digress too much, but that was intended as a transfer station to convey it out past the reef. It's not intended as a holding basin. All the water that comes from under the road here at San Vittorio, so we ripped up the road 25 years ago, conveys to Fujita Ponding Basin. That's supposed to be a pump station to pump it out past the reef. That was the design. But 2 things happened.
Okay.
The federal EPA said you're not pumping that water out into the ocean, in the reef. You're not you're not digging a hole under the Tumon Bay to do it. And they ran out of money. So all the water is conveyed to Fujita Ponding Basin, and there it sits, but it's only less than a half acre of ponding basin. It's below the water line, so it fills up very quickly. What happens when it fills up? Because they've got culverts the size of refrigerators under the road. What happens? The water's always here. So what happens when the water gets up to this point? It starts going back through the conveyance. Where does it come up? At the low point. Hyatt and Sandcastle driveway. How do I know? You can see it bubbling up. How do I know for sure? I get fish in my back parking lot from time to time. Fish from the ponding basin, okay? There's an easy solution for this, but I don't know, it's probably another time. But that was the first hot bond, right? It was, infrastructural improvements. It's about $30-40 million, $50 million, something like that. The second hot bond came during Governor Calvo's administration. There were 2 priorities on that. The museum, $30 million, and fix the flooding, 2-month flooding. Fix it this time, right? So how do you fix it? They had to do a study. So they hired, I forget the name of the company, but they did a 299-page. So I remember I read all 199 pages. And the problem was everybody started going to the legislature at the time of the bond saying, I need $1 million, I need $1 million, I need $2 million, I'm in around communities, and those are all good projects. But they came up with this Christmas list, and then they said, well, we have to study the flooding. So they started studying the flooding. How long did it take for the report to come out? 2 years. What happened at the end of the 2 years? Where's the money? I think it's gone. Money's gone. So that was unfortunate. So now it's time for a third hot fund, right? In the 30 years I've been here. So you can borrow against the income stream of the hotel occupancy tax, and we can raise up to $100 million, I believe, right? So might be more now because interest rates are coming down. But what do we need, right? Because you don't want to just spend money unnecessarily. But there are a lot of things we need. And I'm not talking about the flooding as much as I'm the worst guy that gets hammered the most. I'm not proposing that we spend the money on that. We need to put the money where it will have highest and biggest impact to improving the quality of the destination for locals and tourists both. I mean, the whole idea of any investment in tourism is to make Guam a better place, not just to visit, but to live and work and raise a family, right? So improving the parks and improving the destination, improving the villages. So you asked, a lot of people have asked, well, where's the money go? Where do you put it? And you can't just put it all in Tumon. You have got to bring the benefits of tourism around the island. You do have to focus on Tumon, though. It's been 25 years since any investment was done in the heart of the tourist district here. The potholes, the roads, the whole thing, the landscaping, it just needs to really be plussed up. It needs to be made schmick, right? It needs to, pave the road, get rid of the potholes, put some nice lush landscaping in within reason that you can maintain it properly. Fix up Pleasure Island where the night market is with some nice signage and graphics, and maybe change the grass to artificial turf in the medians. Miami, every other place does. You can't tell it's artificial unless you touch it. You don't have to cut it. It looks great all the time. That's a small item. I mean, that turf would be $100,000, for example. But 1 + 1 + 1, it adds up, right? But the sidewalks on the side, you can't jog on the sidewalks. You got telephone poles in the middle of the sidewalks, a light post in the middle of the sidewalks, telephone GTA and Oklahoma. I'm not just throwing GTA into it, but every telco has their telephone boxes leaning over, falling over, the fire hydrants, the whole thing. It just needs to be cleaned up. Paint over the graffiti, paint all the government buildings, paint the retaining walls. A fresh coat of paint does amazing things, right? But we did a little calculation. It looks like it's $7 million just to paint, not just Tumon to Mooning, from Agana up to the Micronesia Mall, for example. That stretch, all the retaining walls, all the fire hydrants, all the bases of the street, but nice, fresh, clean coat of anti-graffiti paint over all the graffiti. That's $5 or $7 million probably, right? So that's one item. If you spend 50, that's 10% of the budget on paint, for example, right? So I'm giving you a flavor of where does that money go? It goes, 50% of it probably goes in Tumon to get it back to be a destination you can walk around and jog if you're a local and enjoy. Ipoh Beach Park a bit. You got $15 million to fix Matapang Beach Park flooding. Not this flooding, but all the chambers have collapsed over there.
Yeah, it's always flooded. That parking lot is always flooded over there.
So that needs to be fixed. Guam Fire Department needs a rescue center down there and a training center, so that when people get caught after the reef, it doesn't take 20 minutes to get down to Tumon before they even start looking for them. So 12 to 15 for Matapang. It's at least 30 million for Tumon to kind of clean it up and get it back the way it should be. And then you have to take care of the rest of the island. You have to do something in Agana, for example. The governor would like to see the Palacios either rebuilt or really freshened up, right? And that's nice. That's a nice little visitor attraction. We're talking about some hiking trails where we create a little parking area, some cell phone cameras, and same for all the parks. I'd like to propose, that every public restroom in Guam is dramatically improved. Every public restroom used by visitors, because the hotel occupancy tax should be used for tourist-related things, but sprinkling it around the island, right? The abandoned cars, the overlooks, and find out, the key in all this, to me, it's not the $70 million you spend in improving the destination. It's how do you maintain it? How do you make sure it still looks good? 2 years, 5, that's 1 month later. right? It's not
Right.
graffiti and full of trash.
Right.
And I think the answer, I created that VSO program in Tuma when I was the chairman years ago, the yellow shirt guys, visitor safety officers. That seems to have worked
Yeah.
out. Yeah. So that they're still doing that and it works great. But I think something similar, maybe I came up with, instead of VSO for this one, maybe PQM, Park Quality Manager or something like that. So you take a local family and say, you're in charge of this overlook. You live in the village. You take care of it. Okay. Make sure it's clean. Take a picture and WhatsApp it to GVB every day of anything that's broken. Uh, Here's the uniform paint color we're using for park benches. If there's graffiti, paint over it the same day. Got to clean it up. And then for security, it won't cost that much. And for security, they have the cameras that are solar powered that use
Yeah.
cell phone. So just put a dozen. They're like $300 each. Put a couple dozen at each overlook. Put a couple 60-inch TVs in the lobby of GVB, maybe in the police Koban. Broadcast it on a channel and let the public enjoy watching the. I saw someone, he graffiti, whatever it is. The solution is to have the point is to have a solution for maintenance, for keeping it fresh, right? So I don't know if
Yes.
that's your question, but I think the other thing is I'd really like to see a small fund, $10 or $15 million, not so small, but a $10 or $15 million fund, maybe administered by GITA, for use with the private sector who can't afford to, because the government can clean up their things and all the private businesses are still all beat up. So it'd be nice to see either a matching fund program or a way for private businesses to apply for, maybe it's a zero interest loan that's forgivable after you've completed the work of fixing up things that forward face the community. Whether that's painting
Hmm.
broken things. You got Epau Beach Park needs to be cleaned up. There's a lot. I mean, you go through $20 million outside of Tucumán in a blink, right? But so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so those are some of the things we need to make the destination more. We create a few new attractions, add seats, fix up the destination, clean it up, paint, improve it quite a bit, right? And the last leg is really to understand what I talked about earlier, hiring a firm in Japan and in Korea who can help us reposition and rebrand Guam 2.0. Who do we want to be? Who should we want to be?
Yeah.
And how do we rebrand it in a fresh way? You know,
Yeah.
how do we
Yeah.
innovate? Right?
So let me play devil's advocate. Now I'm going to put on my devil's advocate hat. All right. So it's clear that you're very passionate about this, and obviously you're very intelligent about all of this when it comes to Guam tourism. What do you say to those folks who say it's a waste of money, waste of taxpayer money, trying to put this back into tourism and try to recover tourism? What we need to do is focus and put that money on the future, and the future is industrial development. Let's put our money into creating good paying industrial jobs, manufacturing jobs, industrial type jobs here on the island. And that will be the way that we stabilize and improve the economy. Yeah, don't abandon tourism, but certainly don't reinvest in it like it is our prime source or driver of the economy. What would you say to that?
I would say we have an industry here with 50 years experience, billions of physical investment, and all we need to do is clean it up and put a little effort in, and we add $1 billion to the economy, because according to the tourism economics folks, we were a $2.6 billion industry that's now a $1.4 billion industry. We're missing $1.2 billion. Put it to you this way. It's not impossible for Guam to recover. It's not impossible for Guam to bring ourselves back to a $2.6 billion industry, which is well within the realm of doing. So tell me another industry that can add $1 billion to this economy within 3 or 4 years. 20 years? Okay. New industries and new things take time, take investment.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about bringing in if military is one of the legs of our chair, and by the way, we only have one leg on the chair at this point, stuff changes. So the world changes in 4 years from now. The government decides to not, let's put our money over, let's put a new base and the new focus somewhere else. We took our budget, the Guam budget went from 700 million to 1.4 billion, right? The construction ends in 7 years. The GRT is $100 million a year. It's gone. Poof. Well, how do you fill $100 million hole? I mean, you can try to do it with the other small industries, and over time, I'm sure they're worth doing. But the tourism is a really solid leg of the economy. It's been here for a long time. It's clean. It's proven. I'll say it this way. Go down in Tumon, have lunch in a hotel, look out at the ocean. The product's strong. The ocean is strong. It's true though. You're not taking it and trying to fluff it up. It's here. I went to Phuket the other day. I went diving. I think I saw 2 meters in front of my I couldn't see. I couldn't see the boat. I was 10 feet away from it. So we've got a great product. It doesn't take that much effort. And you've got the hotel rooms here. You've got the infrastructure here. You've got $70 million theaters. You've got all this infrastructure and investment. We can ignore it and start from scratch is ridiculous. So should we have a third leg, 3D printing and what? Absolutely. Should we have a fourth leg? 100%. But you're going to throw the second leg in the fireplace? It doesn't make any sense to me. So the answer I would say is it's the same thing when we look at developing new markets like Australia and Singapore and so forth, right? Are they important? Absolutely. Do you ignore Japan and Korea? No, no. It's like you need the cake and then you can put the icing on the cake, right? We've got the military, bring tourism back and layer all the other stuff on top of it that you want. I think it's fantastic. Have a third leg, have a fourth leg, but to take tourism out of the picture, there's no industry that's going to come up on this island that's going to add $2 billion to the economy in 4 or 5 years. It's physically impossible.
Understood. So still wearing my devil's advocate hat. What kind of things can we do to create more of an intentionally proactive intersection between tourism and other sectors like education, agriculture, healthcare, manufacturing, and stuff like that, so that we can improve everything, if you will, and that maybe we can create better paying jobs, or we can complement different things better.
So I'll be candid because it's my nature. There's no sense like I'm be a terrible politician. I just like speaking. Tourism, education tourism, fantastic. Agricultural tourism, fantastic. Health tourism, wellness tourism, fantastic. As icing on the cake, right? So right now we're underwater, right? So like I don't think there's a single hotel in Tumon that's positive cash flow right now. 5 years later, okay? So the water line is here. You got to get the water line here. Then we can start talking about all this other stuff, right? So what can we do to do all these things? I don't know, but it's not top of my mind today. I'm being straight. I mean, right now my top of mind is getting Japan and Korea penetration up a bit, adding a couple wide bodies, getting ourselves back into breathing room. And then in 2027, we can talk about 1,000 different things. It's my focus. Focus needs to be on the highest and biggest impact in the shortest period of time right now.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So as we start wrapping to the close of this episode, what would you want most the audience to kind of take away from everything that we talked about here? What kind of be your get off the stage kind of final big picture message that you want to reinforce?
Tourism needs support. It needs attention. It's been ignored for 5 years. It needs financial support. It needs investment. It needs the whole community to come together. It really needs to be one message, one group. The whole the old wait, welcome all visitors enthusiastically, wait, that kind of a thing. The one Guam, one island, one people, one message. We need to reinvest in tourism. It's been ignored for 5 years. The legislature with the $10 million airline incentive is fantastic. It's step one. We need the hop on. We need the community support. We need people to stop taking pot shots like the guys in the PDN. I mean, we need to come together and drive the plan. The plan is there. That's a really good plan. We need to drive the plan. I wrote Tourism 2020 15 years ago with Fred Schumann from University of Guam and Nate DeKnight, who was the president of GVB at the time. That's quite a good plan. In fact, PKF, when they did their $1 million, that was free. PKF's $1 million engagement looked at Tourism 2020 and said, really great plan, but not really executed. And it's true, because all of the stuff in there, it wasn't, it was partly done. GVB did what it could, but there's a lot of pieces that the government needs to support, that needs funding, that needs things. We need tourism to take the front seat again. I'd say it this way. I wish everybody on this island could pretend the military didn't exist. What would you be doing to help tourism right now if it was 60% of the economy and it was down 60%? That's what we need to be doing. Do you know what I mean? What would you be doing Rob, the day that Gov Guam gave 22% pay raises and GVB participated, fair enough, they're an agency, that day, I know of a couple companies here who laid off 100 plus employees and cut everyone's salary by 20% the same day. So there's this dual economy that's going on. There's the military, everybody that's associated with it, and all the economy that goes with it. And the tourism players have been here for 25, 30 years that are underwater, and no recognition by the public of what's going on down, the challenges that the industry is having, the scale of the challenge, Tumon Sands Plaza. Have you been in there?
Yes.
You walk through
It's
Tumon Sands
almost
Plaza.
like a ghost town.
There are 0 retailers in there. 0.
Yep.
And there are a couple of other very major closures coming up on the horizon. I can't tell you what they are. They're not public, but very major. We are so close to falling off the edge of the cliff, to being Saipan. Nobody recognizes it. I'm telling you, the path diverges right now. We either support the industry, we get behind it, we take it to the next level. I'm positive and excited about it, or we just keep doing what we're doing. It's not necessarily 10 years to recovery. It could never recover. You walk to the edge of the cliff and fall over. And if you don't believe it, go visit Saipan. Because I'm telling you, there's a couple major closures coming up. People can't hold on forever. So the not doom and gloom is just reality check. What's the final message? Get behind tourism, support it, and promote it. Because if you don't, in 7 years from now, you're going to wake up and the construction's over and you're going to have a problem. That's my message. Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate your candid discussion. You gave it to us straight, and your insights were incredible. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here at the Innovate Guam podcast. For all of my audience members out there, I hope you all learned something here and maybe taking a takeaway where maybe you can get involved to help this. Remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and stay up to date with all of my future episodes. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. See you next time. And remember, no matter whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you so much.
Shout out to GVB staff. Last one. Sorry about that. GVB management and staff. I didn't say anything about them. They're the best. Thank you, Rob.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers.